Hi. Hey, this is the video for Wednesday, February 17th. I am going to explain a little bit about what we'll do today, and then I'll move into a character analysis of Joy/Holga. So it's a timed write day. It's an organization day. And that means you won't be doing a full essay, you'll be doing a paragraph, but the emphasis is on quickly ordering your ideas and making meaning of the text. So we'll spend some time today listening to my direct instruction on, well, what are some thoughts that we have about this potential thesis? And then you will generate your own. The emphasis is on time. So your classmates who are watching this in real time will be asked to set a timer for 15 minutes and generate a piece of writing. The objectives are listed here. We are thinking about the function of a character changing or remaining unchanged. My direct instruction will concern Joy, Holga, but you could pick whatever character you like. The second and third objectives are around your writing itself. We're developing a good thesis statement that conveys a defensible claim, and then developing a paragraph that includes the claim and the evidence itself. You can see there after the timed write, if there's time in class, we'll do a quick small group discussion where people can share what they've written. And that is what we did today, Wednesday, the 17th. A couple other little agenda items before I move into the analysis. Seems likely to me that we will be headed for a snow day. I don't know that for sure. So I'm going to load up an AP Classroom, another multiple choice quiz. Those are what we're typically going to do on Thursdays. You do not have to take it. If multiple choice quizzes are not a goal of yours, then tomorrow is a snow day for you. But if multiple choice quizzes are a goal you've identified, I recommend you take this on your own time. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes. We do on Thursdays have the time for it, but if there's snow and we don't, I don't want you to miss out on that opportunity. So you'll see a text assigned to you in AP Classroom, and I'll make it available in an email if we do end up having a snow day. So that administrative note. And then the last administrative note is goal conferences. It's really important that I get to meet with everybody about their goals sooner rather than later. So if you haven't met with me yet, please do sign up. I'll put plenty of signups on the sheet here that's linked in the agenda. All right, character analysis coming up. This is my direct instruction for understanding good country people through the lens of this standard. Explain the function of a character changing or remaining unchanged. So today we'll practice that by also looking at these second and third standards, develop a thesis statement that conveys a defensible claim, and then develop a paragraph that includes a claim that requires defense. So we're looking at generating a thesis statement, and what I'll ask you to do a first analysis paragraph. So looking at the thesis in the first body paragraph that you would write. I am going to use the character of Joy/Holga to answer this sort of challenge. And I'll show you what that looks like in this analysis. So I want to explain how a character changes or doesn't change. And the direct question I'll ask you in your timed write is this one. Set a timer and generate a thesis statement about a change in one of the characters. So notice the prompt is really pretty vague. I'm not saying do it with this character and do it in this way. I'm simply saying generate a thesis about a change in one of the characters. And that's kind of typical of AP essay questions. They're not real questions at all. They'll say, write an essay in which you evaluate the theme of cruelty in a novel. And you sort of have to go. So with that in mind, one more time, generate a thesis statement and a first analysis paragraph about a change in one of the characters. With that in mind, what do I want to say about Joy? So I'm going to do a think aloud for you to try to represent what happens in my mind in the moments when I'm told what to write. In truth, I figure out what I'm thinking by writing, so this is kind of hard for me to do. But I want to tell you where my head is sort of as I generate my thoughts before I put them down on paper. Joy changes the most. That seems clear to me. So I want to pick Joy. And already as I think Joy/Holga, I'm interested in why can I not pick a name? Why can I not honor her choice? Why can't I call her Holga? I can't because I don't think it's a real choice she made. So I'm interested already in the idea that she's trying to change, but she can't. She wants to change her identity to Holga, but she chooses that just to make her mom mad. So that represents to me an attempted change, which I find interesting. And I also find it interesting that as she goes off with Manly Pointer, she is doing the same thing. She's sort of playing with the idea of change. She goes with this boy. She's not done that before. She walks with him to a storage barn. She imagines she'll seduce him, like it would be so easy to do that. So she's playing with this idea of herself as a different person, change, but it's superficial. I'm interested in that too. How does she change? Well, so far I have two thoughts about how she changes artificially. And then there's the real change. And the thing that's so amazing about the real change is it's like that. It's immediate. And that must be devastating. Why does the real change happen? I think in part it happens because it's so surprising to her. When he asks her to take off her leg, she never saw that coming. So I find that really interesting. It doesn't fit into her mental model, and she's so proud of her mental models. So here a guy has surprised her, and she thought she could predict everything he did. That starts the change. And then as a result of that, she starts to give herself to him. And that change leaves her completely devastated. So I think I'll focus on those ideas. For better or for worse, I think it's for better, and I'll try to get into that in my conclusion. Okay, that represents what I never do, which is think out loud before writing. I would just start trying to figure it out by processing my thoughts on paper. I would start writing Holga, name change, superficial encounter, real change. I would do that in a little outline web thing or something. And then I would go and try to put it into my own words. So for me, the process would happen silently and on paper, but I owe it to you to do it out loud. This is what I think in the end I would generate. Conceptual thesis. The character who changes the most in this story is Joy/Holga. But to call it change misses the intensity of the transformation. Because she never saw it coming, Holga is reduced down to nothing. It's a really wordy thesis statement, but I want to pack a lot in. I want to get the idea of the intensity of the transformation so that when I get to the conclusion, I can really capitalize on that intensity. And I want to capture that the intensity happens because she never saw it coming. And because she never saw it coming, it completely strips her of everything. Conceptual thesis. I know what I'm going to do in my head as I write that out. And so I built a little outline to remind myself. I want to talk about the name change. I want to talk about the superficial change of the encounter and then the deep change where everything actually changes. And then I'm going to suggest or argue at the end, this is good change, actually, as devastating as it is. If you are interested, you can always write a list thesis. They're really important and good. If you do that, it would look something like this. The character who changes the most in this story is Joy/Holga, who is reduced down to nothing by the story's end. Her development begins with her childish name change and the superficial encounter with Manly Pointer, but that change comes into fullness when that encounter turns real for her. So this gives me a bit more of a roadmap of I'm going to be talking about change through the perspective of the childish name change, through the perspective of the superficial encounter with Manly, and through the perspective of the real change that happens in the barn. So I think that's fine as well. And this, in the end, is what I wrote for my full model. So you'll see this. Here's the thesis. And then I'm asking you to generate your first analysis paragraph. In blue are optional things. Some of you have interest in developing outlines, so I'm creating a space where I think you could do that. And then some of you have expressed a real interest in developing a stronger conclusion and topic sentences. So I've gone ahead and wrote the very first sentence of each next paragraph and the first sentence of my conclusion. I'm going to read through all of this. You are certainly welcome to just read it on your own. I'm just going to guide you through it so you can feel like you got it. Stop the video and go ahead and get going on yours, and you can check out my model there if it's helpful to you. Model is not helpful to everybody. It can distract you from your own thinking. If you have energy and excitement, stop the video and go. If you have confusion, stay. So, the character who changes the most in this story is Joy/Holga, but to call it change misses the intensity of the transformation. Joy is instead reduced down to nothing. I want to add that second statement, because she never saw it coming. That's kind of an important idea for me. Before she is stripped of all her tightly held coverings, Joy attempts to transform on her own, but her intended change is superficial only. As soon as she is able, she changes her name to Holga. But it is an act of childlike defiance and not of real deep-seated growth. Indeed, she chooses the name at first on the basis of its ugly sound, which proves that even her mother, who understands so little, sees through her attempt at change, certain that Helga thought and thought until she hit upon the ugliest name in any language. Her name is a secret fact, a personal affair, and a matter of intense personal pride, representing her distance from her mother and a triumph of self-loathing. There is no dynamic quality to the name. It represents merely her belief that she is greater than her mother, a perception that is fixed, immovable, as sure as the sun. When this truth is shaken to its core by Manly, Pointer, not Hopkins, when she defaults to the same perceptions and philosophies of her mother, and when she proves that she is really not so different from Mrs. Hopewell after all, the story drops her name completely, calling her only the girl. There is no strength to the name she has chosen, falls away as soon as it is in the hands of Manly Pointer, who reveals the lie it contains. That's it. That's what I'm asking you to do, is a paragraph about something in your thesis. And I've built out, again, the rest of it. So where am I going with this? I want to move to the next example of superficial change. Pointer is careful in his handling of Joy/Holga's identity, and at first she perceives herself to be changing in his presence, but only in the ways it suits her, which is to say, artificially. And then I want to move to that last and most important moment. This is my best idea. This is the moment of real change. So I want it to come last, and I want it to be real close to the conclusion so I can keep going with that flow to prove a bigger idea about it. So paragraph 3, it is only when she surrenders her ego completely that real change occurs in Joy/Holga. And lastly, stripped down as she is, bare of every protective measure and talisman that connects her to the past, Joy/Holga is, at the end of the story, positioned for redemption. I'm going to try to argue in the conclusion that because she's been reduced to nothing, she has the chance to gain something, which is an allusion back to the line that he says at the dinner table, he who loses his life will find it. He's predicting Joy has a chance to find a real life here in the moment of desolation.